Hi there! In this lecture we're going to be learning how we can model from plans. So for this we're going to be using this interior which is from Playa Architects and it's called Holiday House. So let me just show you in a bigger image, and this is the interior that we're going to be modeling. But what if we didn't have these photos that I'm showing you right now and we only had the plans? So for instance we have the facade here which can give us an idea of the height of the interior space, and we also have the plans in which we can get the measurements using a reference such as the width of this door. So first of all we need to divide these plans. So if we go to the facade we can see that this specific image has two of them, but what if I only wanted one of them? I would have to go into Photoshop and crop this so that I can have these two separate. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing that we need to do is just to right click and open this with Photoshop. Okay, great. So in here the only thing that we need to do is to crop this top facade. So let me go over here in the left side where we have the crop tool, and we can also just press the C key for this, and let me just grab the corner here and crop it like so. Okay, I can also crop it up here and finally at the sides. I don't really need the tree, but let's leave it anyway. Okay, now that we're done, we can just press any tool, for instance the move tool, and it's going to be cropped for us. Now we only have to save it as a JPEG, so let's go to File and Save As. I'm going to be renaming this Facade 1 and save. We do want the quality at its maximum, so 12. Let's press OK, and now let's go for the other one. So if I just Ctrl Z this, I'll go back to this original image, and I'm going to pick the crop tool again, and this time I'll be cropping the bottom facade. Again, let's just go for our move tool in File, Save As, and this is going to be facade number 2. There we go. I also want to crop a little bit our plan because it's way too large. We only need the actual drawing. So let's right click and open this with Photoshop 2. Okay, let's go to our crop tool again and crop it so that we don't waste any space there. This should do it. Okay, now let's go to File and for the last time, Save As. Let me just rename this to Plans 2 and OK. Okay, now that we're done, we're going to be using a similar method that we've been using for the past 3 lectures. Don't worry if you haven't seen those lectures, it just means that you have plans instead of an actual photo, which is totally fine. So what we need to do is to just know the dimensions for each of the images that we just cropped. So first of all, I'm going to be importing this into 3ds Max, and again, I need to know the dimensions, so I'm going to right click, go into its properties, and now details. Down here in details, we will have the image size, and it says that it has 352 pixels in height and 68 pixels in width. So let's keep that in mind or write it somewhere so that we don't forget it. And now we can go to 3ds Max. Alright, so once here in 3ds Max, we are going to be creating a plane with the dimensions that we just saw for our plan. So let's just create it and let's go into its parameters. And in width, I'm going to write 638, and in its height or length in this case I'll be typing 352. Alright, now it's time to bring in that image. So we're going to go back to our folder. Let's just scale this down and let's grab the plans that we just cropped, which is this one down here, and the only thing that I'm going to do is just to click and drag it into this plane right there. Okay. Alright, now let's go to the top view and make sure that you have the orthographic mode on, so that we can see that this is scaled properly and that we didn't switch the dimensions by accident. Okay, so everything is looking fine. Now let's do the same thing but with our facades. So let's go back to our folder, and this time I'm going to go for my facade number 1, which is this one right here. So right click and properties, let's see the dimensions of this specific image, and we have 458 in height and 830 in width. So let's write this down, or we can just grab a plane right away and let's go into its parameters and check that dimensions again. So we have 830 in width and 458 in height. By the way, make sure that you have the default shading on, because if you are working with a clay mode, we won't be able to see our plans. So make sure to have the default shading on. And also Let's not use the wireframe mode, obviously, so be careful with that. Now click and drag our facade like so, and there we go. Now what we need to do is to go ahead and position this so that the length of this facade is matching with our plans. So let me just grab my gizmo there and roughly put it so that the length matches our plan there. Okay, so next step is to just rotate this facade. So with our snaps on, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And now I'm going to go to a front view just to drag this all the way up here until it roughly matches the plans. So what I want to do is just to basically take the plans as our ground floor and just position this facade like so. Our third and final step is going to just scale this until we have the right dimensions for our interior walls and doors and so on. So if I go to the top side, I'm going to take this door as a reference because doors are usually 90 centimeters to 1 meter 20 centimeters. So I'm just going to take the width of the door as 1 meter. So I'm going to be grabbing a box and just placing it on my plan. Now what I'm going to do is go to its parameters, and I want the width to be 100 centimeters. So this is going to be our reference to scale this image. I'm just going to be placing it near our door. And I'm going to pick both of my plans, and what I can do right now is just to place the pivot in the midpoint of my box. So let's go into our hierarchy, affect pivot only, and I'm not going to center it, obviously. I just want to center both of these pivots to my door. Okay, so we have that one there, and because I'm actually manipulating both of these images, I'm going to do it one by one. So let's pick our plan first and position this roughly at the middle of our door there. So we can have this as our center of scale, and it's going to be enough by just placing the pivot on our plan there. So let's go into the top view again, grab both of our images, press our R key and make sure that we're not actually on our second option but our first one, which will scale this proportionally until we are matching this door with our box. So that's going to be more than enough. Let's go back into our front view and position our facade like we had it. Okay, so now we have everything scaled properly, and we're going to be actually moving this pivot of our facade. So affect pivot only and center to object, and the same thing with this one. So center to object and deselect the affect pivot only option. Okay, so we've imported and scaled our plans very easily, as you can see, and now it's time to talk about layers. So layers are extremely important because they can help us be more efficient with our time. So if you remember, we placed the layers just next to all of our tools here. The only thing that we need to do is to call them in by going over here to the top and toggle Layer Explorer. This will open our Scene Explorer, which are basically our layers. So let's just click on it. And now let's see how this works. Okay, let me actually just make this a little bit bigger. So first of all of our images here are inside one single layer. For instance, if I had my walls modeled with my windows and window frames and so on, and let's say that I only wanted to pick my windows, I would just double click on the layers where my windows are. So I'm going to double click here, and because all of these are in the same layer, we're going to be selecting all of them. So that's not good. First of all, we're going to be creating layers to put in everything such as stairs, our floors, slabs, walls, ceiling, and all that you want there. So how do we create a new layer? I'm going to just go up here to this positive icon, and we can see that it says create new layer. So let's just click on it, and to rename a layer, I only need to press this once, but make sure that you're not pressing it actually really quick. This is a bit odd, but you actually have to press it for a while, and then it's going to be selected. If you cannot do that, or if you're having troubles doing that, just right click and rename the layer. Another thing to keep everything organized is to have a prefix before your actual name. So this is going to be very helpful because when you have a file that you imported from your client, you're going to have a bunch of layers here. So it's nice to keep everything organized, and you can do that by just typing in a prefix. For instance, here at the studio, we use em first, then we just use an underscore. So let's say that in this layer, we're going to be placing our windows. So let me just type in windows. Okay. Next up, I'm going to create another layer, which is going to be walls. So again, let's write our prefix. You can create your own prefix. 2 letters is more than enough. So you can just place your initials. So now em walls and so on. So you can see that it's pretty straightforward. Em slabs. And finally, em doors. So this is going to be enough for this example. All right, so next up, if we have a geometry that we wanted to change layers, let's say that I accidentally created a box on my doors layer and I wanted to change it to my walls layer. The only thing that I have to do is to select the layer, and you're going to be able to see that you're actually selecting that layer when this icon turns green. So let me just create a box there. Okay, so whatever I create inside that specific selected layer, it's going to be inside of that layer. So let me just show this by clicking on this arrow, and we have the box 002 there. And what if I wanted to change this box into my windows layer? It's not a wall, it's actually a window. Let's say I would only go and select the windows layer, and then I would just press the add to active layer. So now my other layer is empty and I actually have something here in my window. Okay, so if I double click, it's going to be selected immediately. This is very helpful, and it's going to save you a lot of time when you have plenty of geometries inside your scene. So let's say that you want to add a glass material to all your windows. You would only have to double click on that specific layer and that would be the end of it. So it's very important to know this. So another helpful tool here in our layers, it's the freeze layer. So let's say that I want to freeze these images because I don't really want to move them. I want them to be fixed there. I would only go ahead and freeze this layer by clicking on this icon right here. Okay, so this way I will not be able to move the specific geometries, but at the same time I'm not able to see them, as you can see. Okay, but it's going to be helpful enough for when you are modeling, let's say, a window inside a wall and you don't want to move the wall. You will want to freeze the wall first. So you can use it for whatever purposes you would like, but in my case I like to keep everything unfrozen. It's just the way that I work, but that's going to be up to you. Next up, we have the rendering. So if we didn't want to render a specific layer, we would just disable the renderable option. Okay, so that's basically all you need to know about layers, and remember that it's a very important tool to be using. So from now on, we're going to be using layers. So let's go ahead and start our modeling. I'm going to be starting by creating my slab. So let's go inside our slabs and let's just collapse these and let's go to the top view. So first of all, I'm going to start my modeling by using a box. And I actually want to have a second look at my facade here. Okay, so let's go to the top now, and I'm going to be creating a box that covers my whole plan. Okay, now it's actually a bit too thick, so let's right click it and convert it to an edit poly. And at this point, I want to make this box see-through so that I can see my actual facade, right? So Alt plus X will do that for me. Okay, and now I can see where my slab is. So I'm going to reduce the height of this and match it with the edges of my plan here. Okay, and there we go. Now I'll be just creating the walls here. So let's go into our positive icon, bring a box in, and I actually want to create this box on top of my slab. So I'm going to be activating the auto grid and creating this wall like so. Okay, now to know the height of this, I only need to go to my lateral view. So right click and convert this to an edit poly. And I'm going to just grab this wall here until I reach this point on my facade. Okay, I also want to make this see-through, so Alt plus X while selecting your geometry there. Okay, now I'm only going to be connecting this edges so that I can split this face here and start extruding it so that we match our plan. So let's go into our edit edges over here. So connect, and I'm only going to connect it once. Let's go back to our top view to be a bit more precise about this, and I'm going to drag it all the way to here. Now by selecting the face, okay, so right click and extrude it, and I'm going to be taking this all the way over here until I reach the end of this specific wall, like so. Okay, so check, and now I'm going to grab these edges over here and do the same thing, connect them, and for this I'll be taking this edges all the way over here, which gives me this really thin wall where I have my kitchen counter. Okay, I'm going to select the face now, extrude. Let's go to the top view once again. There we go. I'm actually going to be connecting these 4 edges. Take this edge over here, go to my perspective mode and extrude it like so. Okay, so to be a bit more precise about all of this, don't forget to go to your top view. Okay, now for this really thin wall, I also going to connect it. You can actually choose your own method. We know many methods by now, and the other thing that you could do is just to start slicing all of these walls with a slice plane. I think this is the best way to go, by just connecting all of these edges. It's a very easy way to do it. So I'm going to check this on my photo if this is actually a door or it's just a void. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so as you can see, it's actually a door. So what I'm going to do is just to drag this wall all the way over here to this point, and this is an extrusion, so we can do that by just slicing that wall and then extruding this inwards. So I'm going to actually be taking this wall all the way over here, and at this point the wall actually turns a little bit thicker, so I can either just delete this face and then pick its border and extrude the border with a different scale, or I could simply create another box. So that's what I'm going to do. It doesn't really matter as we're working in the same layer. And actually, look at this, we forgot to change the layer. So what I need to do is just to only go into the walls, and because I have all of my walls selected, I'm going to go ahead and just add this to my active layer like this. So if I double click on my slabs, I will only select these slabs, and if I double click on my walls, I'll be selecting all of my walls. Okay, so don't forget to activate the layer that you're actually using. And if you did that, well, I congratulate you for keeping awake. So let's just pick the box and make sure that you have your auto grid on. And I'm going to right click it and convert it to an edit poly. I'll be grabbing all of the vertices down here and snapping them into the end of this wall, and the same thing with the top one. Okay, let's go to our top view. Oops, okay. And let's make this box see-through, so Alt plus X to do that. Let's pick the vertices and follow the plan. Okay, now let's go ahead and pick the edges. So connect them first. Okay, and again, I'll be selecting this face and extruding it like this. And I'll be showing you another method of how you can do this in just a bit, which is also a very fast one. Okay, so let's just pick the edge there and connect it. Okay, so 4 polygons, and finally we're just going to be dragging this all the way over here. Okay, now right click and extrude. There we have our walls, and the other method that you can go for, it's by just creating a plane. So let's say that I've created a plane here like this that follows the same wall, and I'm actually going to hide the walls that I've just created. So right click and hide selection. Don't worry, I'm not going to be going through all of them at this point again. I only want to show you this type of method. And I'm going to right click it and convert it to an edit poly. So what I can do is just to select the final edge here, and before turning it into an edit poly, make sure that you have no segments. There we go. And now right click, convert to edit poly. I'm going to select the last segment, and by just holding my shift key, I can do this and follow my actual plans. So the downside to this is that I'm not going to be able to see it properly on my plans, so this is not going to be as exact as our other method there. Okay, but it's another way that you can do this. You can see how quickly we just did what we did before, but as I told you, if I go to the top view, I can't actually see this. So at this point, I would only have to add a shell modifier. And let's go down here and straighten the corners, and now the outer man, we could just say that these walls have around 20 centimeters in width. Okay, so that's the other method that you can go for. So let's actually delete this, and it's up to you which method you want to do. So let's unhide all. Okay, so now let's create this wall and make sure that you're in the walls layer. Let's go ahead and pick our box. And right click and convert it to an edit poly. So I want this box to be see-through, Alt plus X. I'll be grabbing the top face and snapping it to the top part there. I'll be doing the same thing with the other one at the bottom here, but it was actually on our slab because we have the auto grid on. Let's go back to our top view, F2 to see through our polygon selection. And there we go. Now we have to connect these edges to create this perpendicular wall. So connect, and I'm actually going to connect it 2 times. Let's go to our top view and reduce the separation between these two. Okay, that's enough. Let's pick this face and extrude it all the way over here. Let's go to the top view so that we can see better. Okay, check this. And now a final connect. I only want it once. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. And let's just drag this all the way to the bottom side. I'm going to be grabbing both of these polygons, extrude, and this is actually going to be local normal. And place it where it belongs there. Let's go into our clay mode, and there we go. All right, so there's something about this project is that the roof actually has a slope on it. So we need to do that. And it's pretty easy when you have the plans, as you can see. So let's go to the default shading here. And the only thing that we have to do is to create the back wall and then give it the height of the back of this roof that we can see it on our facade. Let's pick the box and create the back wall. So make sure that the outer grid is on. And we're going to be doing it like this. So right click, convert to edit poly, and select the top polygon. Let's go to the front view and extrude it until we get to this point. All right, now let's make sure that everything is aligned. So I'll be picking these vertices and matching them with the end of my slab and the other one as well. Okay, now let's create the roof. So let's go into our Scene Explorer or layers, and we actually don't have a roof layer, so let's create one. Make sure that you don't have any geometry selected, because if you have, let's say, this box selected and create a new layer while selecting this box, this geometry is going to be moved to this new layer that I've created. So right click, rename, and our prefix, it's EM. Make sure to be using your own, and it's going to be called roof. Okay, now let's go back to our command panel. Let's go to a lateral view, create a box, and it's going to be something like this. So I'm actually going to be converting this to an edit poly because it's easier for me to snap all of the polygons to my existing geometry like this. And I'm going to go to my left side. So I'll be grabbing these vertices and snapping them to the end of the wall from my front view. The same thing to this ones, but this time I'll be snapping them to the end of the back wall there. So what I'm going to do with these walls is just to go to my left side, and with my vertices selected, I can drag them all the way to the top. The same thing with the back ones over here. And we have a small problem if I select all of this wall. So I don't really want these walls to be popping like this. Now it's very simple to fix this. The only thing that we have to do is to create a pro boolean. So once our walls are picked, and let me just pick this one too and turn it into a compound object. So let's go to here and pro boolean. Okay, so before doing the pro boolean, we actually need to make a clone out of our roof. Right click, clone, and I'm going to clone it as copy, not as instance, and hit OK. And I'm doing this because once we use the pro boolean tool, our roof is going to be lost. So first of all, let's select this wall. Let's start picking, and I'm going to pick our roof here. As you can see, one of them has disappeared. So right click, clone it again and copy it. Let's go for a second set of walls and start picking. Let's select again this roof, and now I'm going to hide it. So right click, hide selection, and the only thing left to do is to turn our pro booleans into edit polys. And I actually just failed to select this one, so let's go ahead and do that. So let's pick these vertices all the way to the top, unhide all. Now let's make a copy out of this roof. So right click, clone, copy, and with this additional set of walls, I'm going to go ahead into my compound objects, pro boolean, and start picking with this set. Deselect this and select our roof, right click and hide selection. Now I'm going to go to my left side, pick all of my walls, right click and convert them to edit polys. So now we only have to delete the polygons which are here. Okay, now for this set 2, and finally this set right here. Alt plus X. Okay, everything is doing well actually. And there we go. Okay, so we need to fix this. Let's just bring it all the way down here, and let's go to a left view just to level this. So I'm going to pick these two vertices, as you can see, these two, and with my scaling, but my second option, I'm going to scale them on the same construction plane. The same thing with this edge right here. I'll be dragging it with my shift key all the way to the top. Okay, let's make sure that they're actually aligning. So I'm going to pick these two vertices right here and the other one over here, and just align them with our snaps tool. Okay, the last thing that we need to do is to make sure that all of these are welded together. So let's go into our edit vertices and click multiple times our weld option just to make sure there. Let's turn this into our clay mode, right click and unhide all. So this is looking pretty good. And the reason that we lost this face at the left side here is because our roof is actually right next to it. So the best way to go around that is just to make this roof a little bit larger before we do our pro boolean actions. Okay everyone, so I invite you to finish the rest of this modeling. It's not much to do. You only need to go for the doors and windows. If you have any problem doing that, don't hesitate on contacting us and we'll help you right away. Thank you as always for listening. I'll see you in the next lecture.